Welcome guys to a brand new episode of the Grand Tour game. This is Season 3, Episode 5, is that right? I think so. And Itchy Urus, is that how you say it? I probably said that completely wrong. Anyway, let's jump in. Let's do this.
Thank you very much. Welcome, and coming up in this week's show. Abby is sideways on ice in a 911 Turbo. Richard drives Jim Clark's beautiful Lotus 25. And I nearly fall over. Right, there's a new off-road four-wheel drive Lamborghini. It's called the Urus, and to find out if it's any good, I took the Grand Tour to Sweden, armed with some questions. Here's my first big question. If you build a car to tackle terrain like this, can it still be a proper Lambo? Well, the Urus certainly looks like a jacked-up supercar. With its swivel-eyed styling, it appears to be every inch a Lamborghini. But is it?
Yay, the actual car's actually in the game. Annoyingly though, the Alpine, the James May segment of the show, just is not here. So, yeah, it's just been cut out of the game. But, this is in the game, so that's a plus, that's a plus. It looks great as well. Oh no! Oh man, they are solid snow barriers. Very, very solid, sorry. I've not driven this car yet in the game. I've just started this episode. If you guys want to see these episodes as well every Friday, keep hitting the like button, keep being supportive, and I'll keep them coming. I promise. I promise, I promise. Not too bad. It's actually got a surprising amount of grip. I don't know if the snow is a factor or not.
Right, onto the straight.
It's going to be tough for me to get a gold right now. Damn it, I have to slow right down. Damn you, corners!
That for a tidy line.
I think like 30 seconds left.
Oops.
That was not a tidy lap. Yeah, so the Alpine is just not in the game. Not even bubble wrapped. It's just not in the game at all. I guess they can get permission. It's probably not like another game.
That's no do.
They don't need to play with it. I don't know. So we should get gold. Nice, good start.
This is the first Lamborghini
Solid start.
to use turbocharging and the first to have an automatic gearbox. And what that combination means is there's a very slight and rather un-Lamborghini-ish gap between putting your foot down and it getting going. And when it does get going, there are no screaming histrionics. Sure, there's a bit of popping and banging from the back. But you can't hear that inside, where everything is muted and refined. I can see the Pope in one of these. So, it's quiet and a bit hesitant. And it has snazzy diffs and a clever traction control system. And the biggest carbon brakes ever fitted to a road car. So it's safe as well. However, there's no getting around the fact that I'm currently driving on snow and ice in a car that has 641 horsepower rampaging around underneath its bonnet.
That is a lot of power. That is a lot of
Which
power.
means that actually, it's not that safe at all.
That amount of power on snow, I just would not advise it. When I heard about this car, I was like, no. Also, when I saw it, I was like,
There's
nah.
no manual locking differentials. There's no low-range gearbox. All you can do is fire it up and then put the drive system into snow mode.
So this is all just about driving sensible. Do not make the Clarkson scared. I almost lost it completely. Yeah, one scream, one bit of terror, and that's it. Like, it's over. It feels heavy, this car. It feels really heavy on the road. It's a bit reluctant sometimes to turn, which is not ideal. Not ideal at all. Just take your time, there's no rush. There's no time limit. All about just driving smooth as butter. 60%. You could risk it and just bomb it, but as you saw in my first run, it's very easy to lose the back end, hit a wall or hit a snow wall. Yeah, when I saw this car, I was like, nah, that is not a Lamborghini. But I'm actually I'm starting to like it a little bit. I think it's quite a cool car. Saying that when you see a bunch of footballers driving it, it won't be cool anymore, I guess. But yeah, I like it.
This car, it sits right at the moment where excitement stops and terror begins. That is Lambo land, that is. Shit. So, the Urus looks and feels like a Lamborghini. It's also practical. The boot is massive. And inside, there's space for 5 6-footers. It's a nice place to be as well. And all that's great. Which leaves us with one more thing to answer. Is it a good laugh? What we've done is use a snowplow to create a racetrack on this frozen lake. And this is what we have planned. I'm going to try and overtake this, a 4-wheel drive Porsche 911 Turbo, which is being driven by the Grand Tour's racing driver, Abby Eaton. Have you seen this crack?
I hadn't noticed that before.
Look at the state of this.
You're the heavier car, aren't you?
That's 2.4 tons, and I weigh half a ton. Are you not worried about that?
I haven't got my seatbelt on, so if it goes under, I can get out straight away.
Seriously?
Yep.
Before the duel began, I had a few practice laps on my own.
Oh, it's all about speed again.
Keep going.
Oh my god. Okay, this is slippy. This is very, very, very slippy. Is it the same track in the episode? Sorry, sign. So I'll somehow get 28 seconds. It's not a long lap at all. Come on! That felt pretty good. Is it the same track on the episode? I don't think so. The one in the episode is shaped like a penis. This does not feel like a penis. That sounded so wrong. So I got a silver. Now we're pushing for a gold. I believe in myself. We can do this. Push it to the max. There's the finish line.
That is
Gold! 26 seconds, pretty much. I've impressed myself. If you guys can beat that, let me know. I still think for the amount of content you get, £12 is pretty good. Like, that's a good price. Really good price. I think they've almost used it as a way to publicise Amazon Prime, publicise the show, basically as an advertisement in some ways. If off-roading, I mean that's what it's for. car looks good. Especially from the front, it just looks like an Aventador. From the rear, it looks like a 4x4. A little bit boxy, perhaps.
Drive carefully. Look at that for a tidy line. Oh no!
And we have another goal.
Not be able to get as far up a ski slope as a Range Rover, but for doing this, it's better. But would it be good enough to get past Abby in that Porsche? There she is. There she is. The bell has sounded, the race is on. Now we'd find out what's what on our specially designed track.
4x4 versus a Porsche. I've got to stay
Make this car
as close as possible, be consistent. Same track, by the way. Come on! Trying to catch up a little bit on the straights. I've got off-road too much. It's now silver. Yeah, going off-road really slows it down. I guess that's pretty obvious. Look, where are you going? Damn it, that's bad. This is a tough challenge, probably the toughest one so far. Jeremy Clarkson, stop moon. Try and keep it below 100. We feel pretty close, right? This is the closest I've been.
Oh, my Urus is a bit twitchy. Something to say to your doctor.
Stay close, stay close. How long have we got to go? It's the last lap. Not screw it up. Not screw it up. We good? Is that it? Yes! Another gold.
Come on, you can have her! Come on!
Fun, yeah, nice day out.
I got paid for that.
How was your job?
It was work. Doing that was my work. It probably won't be the fastest off-road car in the world for very long, though, because both Aston Martin and Ferrari have got big SUVs coming out this year.
Yeah, whatever. Thing is, could you really tell people that you have a Urus? Because it sounds like a minor alien out of Star Trek.
Yeah.
But it does work as a Lamborghini.
Yeah. But no.
Well, this is excellent consumer advice.
Yeah, it's very clear, very clear.
The thing is, after I made that film, which was quite good fun, I came home and I thought, the trouble is, it could do with being a bit more Aventador-ish. It could do with being a bit more mad.
Are you saying you changed your mind?
Yes.
Oh, great. So Prime Minister Clarkson returns from the summit. I've declared war. But on the plane home, I had another think about it, and I'm not so sure now. I've changed my mind.
Exactly, that's what I've done.
Good. Well, since we're in such a sensible frame of mind, I'd like to move things on now with a brief history lesson.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Okay, I did not expect that. The Lotus 25 is actually in the game. That is so sweet! Looks like we might have a new track as well. This is such an incredible car. I highly recommend watching the whole piece. Watching the episode fully. Like, honestly, that piece on Jim Clark is incredible. I'm a big F1 fan, but I think you'd enjoy it anyway if you don't like F1. It's one of the best drivers ever to drive a car. Like, it's just such a talent, so quick, so natural, and a decent guy as well. Unfortunately, he did die. Driving at 170 miles an hour. They believe the tyre was like low on pressure or was depleting, and he crashed. Yeah, a lot of drivers died back then. I think they said like 120 drivers died in 1 year. racing. Racing was so dangerous. So dangerous. It still is. It's not obviously quite the same level. Keep on going. It's a pretty hard car to drive, I'm not gonna lie.
Go, go.
Got a silver. Damn it! Done it! Done it, done it, done it.
This is electrifying.
How tough. 117 flat.
These were not powerful cars. They only made 210 brake horsepower for 1.5 litres, but they were still good for 180 miles an hour. Oh!
Thanks to its revolutionary monocoque chassis, the 25 was stiffer and lighter than any other F1 car, which meant it wasn't just fast on the straights, but quicker through the corners too.
Oh, it's black and white! Damn! Right, where is the first speed camera? There's one behind us. That's the last corner. There's one here. Okay, I can't imagine that being particularly quick, but okay. Brake nice and early. Bring the car around. Get on the accept. Oh, damn it!
Brilliant.
Really? I didn't even like turn in that direction, and it just went, yep, I'm gonna turn right. As you can see, I've done this lap now a few times, and that makes me a little bit angry. This car, I know, has more grip. I know it has more speed, but in the game, it's just not there.
Watch this.
It's just not there. No, go wide again. God forbid if I try and push this car any more than what the game wants me to. 80, 79. There's gonna be a very. This last speed camera is gonna have to be like 85 at least. At least. Quite direct it.
Keep going.
Yes! That gold?
And in the 1963 season, Clark used it to win a record 7 out of the 10 Grand Prix.
Winner is Jim Clark. Nobody could possibly catch him now.
But 1963 was just a warm-up for what was to come. To get a true picture of Clark's genius, we must look at another year, 1965, when he hit heights no driver had reached before, or has done since.
A modern Formula One driver does 21 races a year and often complains that's too many. In 1965, Jim Clark raced in 63 races. Some of these cars look similar, but they are all completely different. In a car like this, he'd do Formula One Championship. He raced in the British Formula 2 Championship and the French Formula 2 Championship in this car. He raced in the Tasman Series, a sort of Australian Grand Prix for Down Under, in this car. And then there's this Lotus Cortina, in which he decided to race in touring cars. And then if all that wasn't enough, he decided to go for the Indy 500.
First up was the Tasman Series in Australasia. Out of the 15 races, Clark won 11 and took the crown. Then it was back to Europe for the British and French Formula 2 Championships, both of which he won.
Jim Clark led from the start. Winner is Jim Clark.
And in between the F2 races, he was jumping into his Lotus Cortina and racking up touring car victories.
Ooh! This is in the game as well. Right, so this is a timed lap. Got a certain amount of time to do it. Gonna be completely honest, that little bit of film grain is quite distracting. I'm not the biggest like film grain fan. I always turn it off, to be honest. This will definitely take a few laps. This is such a cool part of the game. I love Jim Clark. I love the piece on Jim Clark. Again, I recommend just watching it. And to drive his cars, even if it's just in the game, I am
Give it everything you've
What a man. What a driver. Car actually isn't too bad.
This is dangerous because of you.
Just the last corner. A bit of a brake and a handbrake turn. It's alright, we've still got a couple of laps yet. And that was not far off. So we should be good. Should be good. Unless we go off-road for too long. Which I don't want to do. The fact he just done so many different disciplines as well. Like he didn't just do F1. IndyCar, touring car, F2. Just done so many. He just liked to, clearly just liked racing. Like, he loved jumping into a car. He loved the competition. He loved trying to beat his own times. And that's what he loved doing. But these days, most drivers do one discipline and that's it. That's all they do. Oh, so close to a gold.
Try that.
I feel like they definitely made the times a little bit more competitive in this episode.
Oh, here we go, here we go.
Made them a little bit tougher. Just slightly more direct route. And try not to lift. By the amount of times he was on like 3 wheels in this touring car,
Go, go, go.
absolutely maxing out all the potential. And there's so many races where he just won by so much time. Silly amount of time. This has got to be it, surely. That was a good lap. Very good lap. Still got 1 lap to go. Can I better my time? No. It's already over. I thought that was a really good lap. Managed to shave off 4 seconds. 4 seconds! That is not bad. Not bad at all. In terms of bargains, in terms of priced games, I think this has to be up there. There's a lot of content for the price. I feel like if it was like £25, I think that's probably a little bit too much. 20 could have got away with that, but for £12, and it'll probably be discounted at some point as well. It's a bargain. Absolute bargain.
And on top of all that, there was America.
The Indianapolis 500 has been called the greatest spectacle in racing.
America's most prestigious race would be a tough challenge. Oval racing at higher average speeds than he was used to against seasoned Indy veterans. For the Indy 500, Clark raced a specially developed Lotus producing just shy of 500 horsepower. However, although he already had a Formula One world title to his name, the Scotsman's CV cut no ice with the sniffy Indy officials, who made the upstart from across the pond take a rookie driving test before he could complete.
A what test? A rookie? I'm not a rookie! How dare they insult Jim Clark? Clearly not a rookie. Again, the film grain. Lovely. Smashing. Yeah, so they've really focused on Jim Clark in terms of the game. I think that's fine. Obviously, the Alpine was not in the game. But yeah, there's a lot of Jim Clark events, so I'm fine with that. 180 miles an hour? Film grain! How long have we got left? About 13 to 10 seconds. Should be good. Hits it nice and smooth. There we go. Another gold in the bag.
Come Indy weekend, the upstart from across the pond qualified on the front row. And then, in the race itself, Clark up against America's finest oval racers, won by just over 2 minutes.
Jim Clark, first European to win at Indianapolis since 1916, set a new record of 150.686 miles per hour.
So what was it that made Clark so good? What was it that made him capable of winning in any type of car?
Jimmy was an absolute natural driver, and he did it without thinking. He didn't know why he was driving in this style the way he did. In the period that we're talking about, we had 1.5 litre cars, 200 horsepower. If you drove the car too hard, you would scrub the speed off. And if you lose a bit of speed, it's very difficult to actually make it up again. And that's what Jimmy had the knack of, keeping the momentum of the car going. I don't think that any of the modern drivers could have driven the car anywhere near as quickly as Jimmy did, because he was just so precise.
Yeah, let's talk about precision. Yep, I'm not about that life. So this is all about just not making Richard Hammond scream. So just get around the track, don't go wide, and everything will be fine.
We're all set. Come on, keep going.
I'm going. I'm trying to be careful. Nice and steady. I think this is the last scene in this episode. Again, I'll be back next Friday. If you guys want to see the next Grand Tour episode, let me know. And again, I'd highly recommend sitting down, watching the Grand Tour episode with Jim Clark. It's, yeah, a great piece. Highly recommend it. Right, this is tricky. I want to get a gold, ideally, on my first go. It breaks so much. So much. Is it indeed? Nice. Oh man, I'm not sure about this film right now. It really affects that, how much you can see. It's like, I can't see what I'm doing. I mean, Jim Clark didn't have film grain. The people watching did, but not actual Jim Clark. Ooh, that was a little bit tasty for a second. Last corner. Done. Gold again. 0 scares.
Besides a supernatural ability to coax speed out of the car, Clark also possessed another vital skill.
A lot of very good racing drivers died in Lotuses because the Lotus was a very fragile car. But Jim Clark was so smooth that he never put too much stress on the areas of a car that would give up.
But don't think for a minute that Clark was one of those drivers that could only win in a perfect car. One year at Spa, for example, he was leading the race when his gearbox started to let go.
Did he give up? Nope. Instead, he drove the rest of the race, and we're talking 160 miles an hour in the wet, with one hand on the steering wheel and the other holding the gear lever in place. And he still won. By nearly 5 minutes. So let's just sum up Clark's season of 1965. Of the 63 races he contested, he won a staggering 31 of them and was on the podium a further 8 times. He was now seen as the greatest racing driver of all time, in demand the world over. Yet this shy Scotsman chose to mark the year's achievements with a modest celebration at his hometown back in Scotland. The next 2 years, by contrast, were a disaster, with multiple mechanical failures denying him another championship. However, in 1968, driving the Lotus 49, another game-changer from Colin Chapman, Clark took the first win of the year in South Africa and looked set for another dominant season.
Congratulations, Jonas. It was absolutely a splendid effort.
Okay, thank you very much. And then, on the weekend of April the 7th, Clark had a choice of 2 races he could compete in. One at Brands Hatch, the other a Formula 2 race at Hockenheim. Fatefully, he entered the German race.
April the 7th is a bad day for me. He wasn't happy. It was freezing cold and damp, misty. We could not get any heat into the tyres. Couldn't get any temperature in them, no matter what we did. Jimmy said to me, "I do not expect anything from me today. Just keep me informed with the pit board, where I am, how many laps to go." That's the last thing he said.
On lap 5, Clark's car suddenly speared off the track at 170 miles an hour. When he died, he was just 32. But in his short career, he had racked up some truly incredible achievements. In Formula 1, he won 25 of his 73 races, which in percentage terms puts him way ahead of Hamilton, Vettel and even Schumacher. In pole positions, he had 33, which again in percentage terms makes him second best of all time, just behind Fangio.
He was a benchmark. That was it.
Most of what I was able to do in motor racing was done by the manner in which Jim Clark drove, and I just followed him.
He was a gentleman. He was a gentleman and a gentleman. It's a pity he's not around now, because it'd be nice to have him.
All of that's amazing. What I find truly amazing is how many championships he took part in. I mean, can you imagine Lewis Hamilton getting out of his Formula 1 car and saying, I haven't got time for any interviews because I've got to go off and do a touring car race? Exactly. Just wouldn't.
And he did. The other thing that's worth remembering is back in the early 60s, if you went to Australia, if you flew to Australia, that meant 8 stops. Yeah. And there were no flatbed, there weren't even any movies.
Yeah, and let's not forget, he'd get off that aeroplane, do a race, win it, obviously, then get on another aeroplane straight away to France to win a race there.
No, it is astonishing. I mean, everybody has a favourite racing driver. I'm sure everybody here does as well. It's, you know, it's the Senna, Schumacher, Villeneuve, Romain Grosjean, Fangio. But if you use maths to measure a driver's greatness, you have to conclude it was Jim Clark. Good night.
So guys, that is the end of this episode. Again, I highly recommend going to watch the episode on Prime, Amazon Prime. Watch the whole episode without my annoying voice or the gameplay. And just a random comment, I'd love to see all the drivers, Fangio, Jim Clark, Villeneuve, Graham Hill, Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen, all racing against each other in the same car. That would be such an incredible event. I would love to see that. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but yeah, just imagine how crazy that would be. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like on this episode. I'll see you guys next week for episode 6, and bye-bye.